think it's 10 o'clock here, Central Time here. So I think we will get this kicked off and we'll let some of the stragglers join us when they can, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time here. So again, you guys are on the Localized Marketing Trends 2025 webinar sponsored by Promo Republic. I'm going to be the host this afternoon. My name is Kasey Skala. I'm the Director of Marketing for Citywide Facility Solutions. We are a B2B commercial maintenance and facility management company, about 104 locations across the US and Canada, and about 800 million in revenue. And I've been here for about 3 years come January. So appreciate you joining here. We got a great panel here for you guys that will discuss a lot of successes that we're seeing across the industry and in our current roles, as well as some trends that we see for 2025. I will introduce the panel here, and then I'll turn it over quickly to Alex from Promo Republic to give his introduction. But again, my name is Kasey Skala, and our first panel is Jane Campbell, Vice President of Marketing at Empower Brands, and I will let Jane give her introduction.
Great. Thanks, Kasey, and welcome everyone. I'm happy to be here today. I'm Jane Campbell. I'm the VP of Marketing at Empower Brands. Empower Brands is a multi-branded franchisor. We have about 10 brands, and I work very closely with the 8 residential brands. They are all home services brands, and I work with the team with respect to their national and local marketing, everything from planning and budgeting to vetting new partners to really just digging in with the franchisees on how they are building their business in their local markets.
Wonderful. Next, we have Ryan Stackable. He is the CEO of Adplorer USA. Ryan, if you want to give yourself an introduction.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Kasey. And glad to be here. Thanks again to the Promo Republic team for putting this on. It's always a good thing joining you guys on your events, and you guys put on a great show here. But yeah, a little bit about myself and about Adplorer. Like Kasey mentioned, I am the CEO of our US team here at Adplorer. If you don't already know us, we are a global software company that has a mission to help solve scalability problems for brands and agencies. We do that with a whole suite of technology and expertise. For a sense of scale and size here, we manage about 16,000 Google campaigns through our platform, and a couple thousand Facebook campaigns and campaigns across a lot of other channels too. So happy to be here. Thank you guys for inviting us.
Wonderful. And then last but not least, we saved the best for last, Max, the guy who created the platform that is sponsoring this event here. So Max, CEO of Promo Republic, and I'll let Max share a little bit about himself.
Yeah, with pleasure. Thanks. Thanks for this short intro. Yeah, co-founder and CEO of Promo Republic, a data-driven platform for franchise growth, obsessed about local marketing, localized customer experience, because it just works better having all this local context. And I think we're one of the few software companies that are extremely community driven when it comes to R&D. So we're trying to build something that really works. And we currently work with over 80 franchise and multi-location brands to help them grow with various kind of automations and with data transparency.
And again, this webinar is part of the series by, first, actually, let me talk about a little bit about the agenda. So here's quickly high-level topics that we'll discuss. Again, we'll chat about what we've seen from a successful standpoint in 2024 and what some trends are that we've seen in the year to date. We'll talk a little bit about some localized marketing trends that we believe will impact the future 2025. We'll have a little discussion around navigating local advertising and how we can scale at the local level. And then we'll wrap up with evaluating some trends for our specific business units. And we'll dive into each of those. Before we jump in, I want to give a quick plug to CMO Pure Talks. This is one of their webinar series. CMO Pure Talks is a learning and networking hub that is created specifically for franchise marketers. So it's a great opportunity for franchise folks to come into a community of like-minded folks that are likely dealing with the same challenges and obstacles as others, and really empowering marketers to drive growth within their organizations and become successful innovators within the franchise space. So great community. If you are not involved in the community, highly recommend it. Quick non-paid promo. We are in the middle of launching a new website, and I found the vendor through CMO Pure Talks. So great networking community for you. So if you haven't checked it out, please do check it out. And then before we hop in, I'm going to turn it over to my buddy Alex, who is going to share a little bit about the sponsors.
Perfect. Kasey, thank you so much for the introduction. It's so great to see familiar faces amongst the panel. And then looking at the attendee list, a lot of names pop to eye, but also a lot of new friends. Thank you for taking time out of your Tuesday to connect with us. I hope everybody's charged and excited for a fascinating panel to come. Prior to kicking off the agenda for today, a brief introduction to myself for those who have yet to meet me. My name is Alex Harbinyoff, and I'm the Senior Franchise Marketing Consultant at Promo Republic. For those who are first being exposed to Promo Republic, we're a data-driven platform that consolidates all of your marketing tools, digital assets, data collection and analysis, while bridging critical workflows between Dazor and Disease. Supporting the franchise space since 2020, we now currently support over 80 franchise brands to generate more foot traffic, obtain more leads, and drive in more consumers who have high buying intent for their franchisees. Our ideal stack of tool can be rolled out to both established and emerging brands to gain value from Promo Republic. If you're facing any, and I mean any, challenges across social media marketing, review management, amplifying your local findability, or even interpreting large volumes of data that are being pulled up and rolled up from the local marketing, let's meet for a quick consultation session on how Promo Republic can help you meet and exceed your goals for 2025. I'll share my contact details in the chat below, but love to pass the spotlight back over to Kasey.
Wonderful, Alex, and good to see you again as well. Well, let's kick off. So 2024, we're coming to the end of the year here. It's been an interesting year in the franchise space as a whole, with a lot of regulations and things going on within the industry as a whole. But you know, the franchise space is a unique beast in itself from a marketing perspective. And I think 2024 has definitely brought a lot of a change and challenges and obstacles for the year. So why don't we kick it off, Jane? I'll kick it off with you. What were some successes and some challenges that you've seen across your portfolio of brands? You got to have a unique experience as you have multiple brands, you know, within your portfolio. So share a little bit about some learnings from 2024 and what's worked, what's maybe not worked, and how the year's gone.
Yeah, happy to. And yes, I work with 8 of our 10 brands in the residential home services category, and there definitely have been both challenges and successes this year. I think some of the challenges has been in the digital space. I mean, there have been so many changes, and quite frankly, our franchisees, especially like COVID and right after COVID, they really could depend solely on digital or primarily on digital. And now it's really shifting back to that traditional, more diversified investment, you know, hitting the direct mail, making sure that they're networking, building brand, because our biggest challenge has been, you know, making sure that people know us. You know, buyers are skeptical right now, and we need to make sure that we're cutting through the clutter. So where we have seen a lot of success is with some of our brands where we've used our national ad fund dollars to invest in more of that high-level brand awareness marketing. And that has allowed our franchisees to focus more on that performance marketing, and they're seeing more of the return than those brands that maybe we didn't do that with or we didn't have the budget for. So kind of looking at what worked and what didn't, the franchisees that went in and said, digital is still important. I'm going to be in digital, going to focus there, but I really am going to add in that top of funnel, continuing to educate our clients and our customers about who we are, what we do. Our process has really shown the growth for those franchisees that took that approach. I will also say we're focusing more on those organic digital methods that maybe they weren't before. How can they partner with somebody locally and create that video content that maybe they didn't in years past? How are they building their marketing database so that they can continue to put forth their messaging yesterday, today, and tomorrow? So we're excited about some of the things that we're seeing and doing in 2025, but knowing that we're still up against some of those challenges. We know that the digital space isn't going to get easier, so we need to make sure that we're finding the right partners and we're leaning in with those partners, as well as investing and testing in other technologies that can help our marketing dollars go a little bit further.
Jane, that's really interesting. The home services and commercial maintenance industry is kind of the darling of the franchise space right now, where just massive growth within those sectors. And it's really interesting that you say that. How do you chat with your franchisees? Because again, right, they see the growth and they see the shiny object of digital. How do you kind of have that conversation with them around that conversation and some of those trends that you mentioned, where digital's still there, but it's getting so difficult and competitive and expensive that we do maybe need to shift a little bit of our focus to the traditional brand side of business?
Yeah, I mean, we train our franchisees when they're onboarding on a full funnel approach. Let's look at how all of the components that need to be in your marketing plan. And we continue that conversation every year. We meet with pretty much every one of our franchisees across the system, meeting with them on their local budget and their local plan, making sure that they're touching all of the necessary tactics. But I'll also say our franchisees have really helped in that regard. We do have more tenured franchisees that were in business, before 2020, when they really saw that boom in the digital space during COVID. And they have never changed their plans. They have really, they may have leaned more, they're investing a little bit more in different areas, but the tried and true traditional pieces of networking, print, just boots on the ground, grassroots tactics have always been there. And those are some of our best performers. So we've also put them in front of our franchisees a lot more to educate them about the importance of that diversified approach. And that has worked well because they are seen as leaders in our system. And we know, in the franchisee space, you can say things a lot, but it's always helpful to hear it from people that are in it with them and totally understand what they're going through.
Yeah, that's an interesting feedback there. We see, so I'm on the commercial side of the service industry. And again, it's challenging because we see our franchisees are having so much success. And at the end of the day, I have to tell them, like, regardless of what you'll do this year from a revenue perspective, we're still less than 1% market share and nobody knows who you are. And, it's great that they have this digital first mindset because we can innovate and we can test with them and, try new things and add new tools to the tool chest. But at the end of the day, right, I have a ton of conversations with our franchisees of, because they're asking, we want to do more digital advertising. And at the end of the day, right, there's a role for digital advertising, but if nobody knows who we are, not many people are, at least on the commercial side, are searching for our solution right now. If a customer needs somebody to come into their building and clean their building, all they need to do is pick up the phone because they're getting called 8-9 times a day, right? So they're not proactively going out there saying, man, there's this need for commercial cleaning. I got to find this, unicorn in the rough. So it is very interesting to have that digital mindset, but then also kind of push them back of there's tried and true of getting involved in your local community and doing some organic work and some traditional media. that's going to add more value than just purely throwing money, all of our money at digital advertising. So it's really interesting. Ryan, you're on the ad side of things. What are some trends that you've seen here this year with brands, and what's working, and what are some challenges that you've seen come across?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, first off, we're in the unique position that we see both the back end of agencies and brands a lot of times, and we're helping sort of in between. And I'll echo what Jane, you were saying about everybody rolling off of COVID and having that kind of that COVID boom where you could run a campaign and it was hard to make it not successful. Like everybody was making money, everybody's having a good time, and especially over the last year or two, people are a little bit tighter with their wallets. They need to figure out how to make their budgets go a little farther. They need to figure out how to be more efficient with their headcount, with their campaigns they're running, with their budgets that they're allocating. And really, in our opinion, one of the things that we've seen from not only the successful brands, but also the agencies that work with those brands is that there really needs to be a coordination and a harmony between what is the franchisor's playbook? Like, what have they defined as these are your KPIs you need to be hitting for your conversion rates, your closing rates, your profitability margins, and then how is that flowing back upstream to the people that are actually hands-on with the campaigns, the people that are actually the ones clicking the buttons and actually making sure that those ads are hitting the right people at the right time. That's really something that comes back to knowing your numbers, knowing your KPIs. And if you don't know that, if you're just kind of flying in the dark and you're like, oh, well, I run ads and I get phone calls and everything's great. Okay, well, has the cost of those phone calls increased over the last couple of months or years, or have you been just throwing money at this same channel, and have you explored other channels, and so or other non-traditional or traditional channels? And so that's really something that we've just been coming back again and again to, is have a methodology for how you're going to run these campaigns, and know your KPIs. And then lastly, nobody's on an island in franchising, or nobody should be on an island in franchising. And so if you've got a franchisee that is out there experimenting, trying new things, that's great. We love that. But also, let's share that insight with what the other network is doing, and let's figure out what campaigns are going to work, regionally or nationwide, and then use the benefit of the scale of franchising.
All right. Have you seen a shift of allocation from search to social? And are there any outliers that you've seen of maybe Reels is really an untapped venue for folks to spend some dollars on. How is that looking in your eyes?
Yeah, I would say in a long-term perspective here, if your brand is not investing in video, put that on your budget, because video content is just, it's in front of people. It's the way that things are I think, going to go. You've got your campaigns like, your Google search ads and maybe some social media image ads, things like that. Those still work. Those still get the lion's share of the budget on digital. Google search ads especially still gets the majority of a lot of people's local budgets. But that being said, if it's a trick that everybody knows, it's going to get a little bit more expensive. And so it's hard to differentiate when you've got, your string of text at the top of Google and then somebody else's string of text right below that. And then you've got everybody else's strings of text. So the ways to differentiate, if you're talking about Google, is going to be, things like reviews. That's always a way to differentiate. That's something that, the Promo Republic guys know a ton about. But then on the social side, like what you're saying, Kasey, is invest in video. That's the biggest thing that I can say right now. And make sure that you are differentiating, not just with, oh, we have the greatest pixel setup that nobody's ever heard of, or we've got the best remarketing list. Like, invest in your content, your creative, because that's really what's going to drive the not only the brand awareness, but that engagement, which is going to turn into conversions and leads.
Ryan, you mentioned Google reviews, which is a good transition over to Max, because again, I think Google reviews is probably the biggest opportunity still out there, and it's mind-boggling that more brands aren't leveraging reviews more than they are. Max, what have you seen, across your guys' portfolio of brands from a franchise space of, what are some obstacles that you're seeing your clients trying to overcome, and where are some wins coming from?
Yeah, so we work with over 80 franchise brands, and we've seen a lot of successes. And those that stand out, they are all connected to data-driven decision making. So I'll just quote some of our customers. So it becomes more and more difficult to compete on their markets without building like their decisions on high quality data. And I'll give you an example of success. Like Expedia Cruises and Curves, they went really into the depth of analyzing what type of content resonates with their local audiences, and they could iterate based on the engagement. At the end, they could identify those successful content pieces, and then made sure the whole organization is using that approach, and they could grow their engagement on social media up to 30%. So that's great. But however, here comes the challenge, right? So, I mean, franchises don't have biggest marketing teams ever, and don't have budgets to hire, I don't know, 5 data analysts, couple of data engineers that will help to figure out this perfect data warehouse. So yeah, so that challenge is pushed direction us vendors. Guys, can you help us figure that out? So you're good. We trust your R&D teams, but we need to make sure we have a high quality data. And data is so fragmented. If we look at localized marketing, there are so many channels, and and that has to be combined. And if it makes sense, also like those connections between different channels should be identified. And sometimes we feel like we're like data plumbers, trying to make sure data is real time and it's high quality. And that was the challenge for us, but that was a great challenge to deal with. And at the end, I think it's very important to base decisions more and more on data. So I think setting up this kind of data foundation was the biggest challenge, and biggest successes were the ones who figured it out and based their local marketing decisions on the real evidence. Data from local marketing, local visibility, and customer experience, they succeeded. And I think that's going to be also the trend for future. And of course, AI needs high quality data to work. At some point, AI will contribute more and more to localized marketing. So that's what we see.
Let's go back to you, Ryan, here. What are some, localized trends that you see coming the rest of this year and heading into 2025?
Yeah, the first thing I'll start off is, again, going back to costs. Both the costs of budgeting for the campaigns and then the costs of maintaining those campaigns. That's something that's on a lot of people's minds right now. And when the franchisor is trying to figure out how do we make all of our franchisees profitable, how do we make sure that everybody is putting money in and getting money out from their marketing, there's a lot of just basic math that people are not doing on that. And that's something that is something that we strongly try to push a lot of our brands and our agency partners to focus in on, and to make a playbook, make a methodology for how you're going to accomplish this. And then, know the economics of also, if you're farming this out to an agency, or you've got an internal team that is actually hands-on with these local campaigns, how much time are they actually spending on those campaigns? How much actual support are they doing? Are they just throwing it into ChatGPT and getting whatever spits out, and that's the campaign you got? Or is there actually some expertise there? Is there actually somebody hands-on? But when we're talking about these trends here, a lot of it is making sure that, again, there's that harmony, that coordination between franchisor, agency, or whoever the campaign managers are, and then the end campaigns. Google is going up in price on a lot of its cost per clicks, and if anybody's running local service ads, we've seen a lot of increased prices there. Maybe even some suspicious price increases there on some of those campaigns. But it just means you got to be more efficient. You got to be more locked in of, what is our threshold that we're willing to spend on these different lead sources. And, hey, maybe this lead source was doing amazing in the past, but if the cost per lead or cost per conversion is too high, then okay, what other options do we have? Or maybe we need to go more mid-funnel, up-funnel to try to build that brand and help people commit once they are at the bottom of the funnel. So again, I think it comes down to just knowing your numbers, know your KPIs.
Max, maybe you kind of led into what you'll follow up with your previous comment around data and AI, but what are some trends that you're seeing, your clients talking about and looking to invest a little bit in for 2025?
Yeah. So yeah, of course, I cannot avoid the AI topic. And however, though there's a lot of innovation happening around the AI infrastructure that is becoming more and more reliable. However, if those are not integrated in some workflow, it's actually just like something to talk about in the kitchen having coffee. So I think the trend will be to really finding those that type of AI-enabled automations that work for your specific business. I'll give you an example. So there is a customer of ours, quick service restaurant, that had a challenge of so a big amount of reviews were not replied to because franchisees are busy, and of course they were convinced that actually only tailored, like, human reply is the best reply to a review that you can actually deliver. But then they started to experiment with AI-enabled review reply automation, and they figured out that actually most of the reviews they actually already have kind of reply template to it, and AI can kind of tune it up so it doesn't look the same, reformulate, rephrase, and provide it as a template. And at some point they realized that those templates are so good that they kind of, if franchisee is not replying within 24 hours, they just go and post that review automatically. And that's how they reached this 100% review reply rate. And that worked for their specific business. And franchisees, they didn't have those like pile of reviews, hundreds to reply to. They had maybe a couple that they really need to reply personally. So that's an example of AI-enabled automation that works for a specific workflow and makes it easier and influences a specific KPI. And we know with 100% reviews reply rate, you get better search ranks. You get, other KPIs are you really increase your findability, like online findability of your locations. So yeah, that's those things will be trending, and long term, I actually think that local marketing on the level of location will be the first thing in marketing that might be automated with help of those AI-enabled agents. Because on the head office level, you have all the knowledge, you know what works, what doesn't. It's all about adding local context and kind of local perspective to it. And I think at some point, AI agents can handle that. And maybe we will reach the point where those inactive franchisees that are not doing much at the moment, and sometimes there are many, will be kind of this AI automated agents might help to make them do at least basic things that have to be done online.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Max. This whole conversation about AI, and I'm all in on AI, and I have use cases that it's improving our business, and I get a lot of kickback from folks of, oh, it's not authentic, it's not real, People, people want to buy from humans, and I'm in the belief that I don't think consumers really care. I think they want transparency, but I don't think they care if they're getting as long as they're getting the right information and the information that they're looking for. I don't think they care if it came from Kasey, the human sitting in Kansas City, or if it came from an AI bot, right? They're just looking for a solution to their need. And AI can provide that. And it's getting really, really difficult now to tell the difference too, right? It used to be able to say, okay, I know I'm talking to an AI bot, but technology is getting so good that it's getting harder to delineate the difference between the two. We're leveraging AI in a handful of our markets for prospecting, and it is a fraction of the cost of hiring somebody to call. The accuracy is better. It's more efficient, and it's ultimately saving us money. So if I can use AI to bring efficiency into my workload, right, and I have the data that backs it up, that we can feed into the AI bot, so it is being accurate and transparent and responsive. Huge opportunity for me then to reallocate my resources elsewhere and my budget elsewhere, and just let AI take some of these menial tasks on for me, get me in front of the customer, and then get a human to connect with them. So very interesting that you brought up AI. And again, I think it's not going away, and it's a huge opportunity if you do it right. And again, if you have a strategy. Jane, over to you. What are some trends that you're looking at, and some things that you're looking to deploy in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, one of the notes I had here was about AI as well. I mean, I think you're right in terms of a few things. Transparency is definitely a trend that we're seeing play a bigger role. People have all the information that they need at their fingertips, and being the resource, I think, is really important. So in terms of content and what information we're planning with some of our brands this year, it really is about taking a step back and just being the educator again. When they're looking at what goes into the price of an outdoor living space, we'll give you all the ranges, we'll give you the details, give you better information so that any conversation that you go into, you're more informed. And I think with AI, you can do more of that at scale. Because I think you're right. A lot of people don't know. And you always want to have real eyeballs, check it and look at it. And especially from something that is a big piece of your business, you need to make sure that you're checking that. But I think you can get more out of your marketing investments if you lean in on tools that are already there. And also AI is helping us with some of our vendor partners with respect to our franchisees getting the most out of their marketing investments. So, taking an omni-channel approach, instead of saying, I'm going to have X amount for pay-per-click, X amount for social, X amount for LSAs, we're going to say all of digital has this amount. Let's see where it works. And with that, yes, we're looking at KPIs like cost per lead and everything like that, but we're ultimately looking at the return on investment. And, I am not striving for a particular KPI or a particular cost per lead. I'm okay if it's a more expensive lead, as long as it's generating business. And if you have the tools with AI and your partners, but also making sure that the information, to Max's point, is full circle, and they're getting the information back from the franchisee, back from where that person is in their buying cycle, it can be really beneficial. So I think some of that is part of the trends we're looking at, is how can we get more out of those dollars by using tools that are already there. We don't have to create anything new here. The other piece, and we've already talked about it, is making sure that more of the investment gets offline, and full funnel. And some of that top of funnel can live online, but a lot of it is relationship building. And I do see that the franchisees that are out there in their community and being a person about town and are easy to refer, are going to build their business more quickly. We know that the referrals are typically the best quality leads and the cheapest leads. So we talk a lot about process with our franchisees, customer service, making sure that you're, involved, and how that can affect your leads and the quality of leads that you're bringing in and the number of leads that you're bringing in. So I think having both of those pieces have been topics that we've talked a lot about at Empower Brands.
Jane, let's touch a little bit on that last topic, because again, 100% agree with you, and conversation I have with franchisees too of, right, if franchisees want their phone to ring today, right, but a lot of them, I think, will cannibalize their phone ringing today at the expense of their phone ringing tomorrow, right? So a lot of the conversation I have with franchisees is, yeah, I want to get you leads today, but if your business isn't around in 5 or 10 years, does it really matter? So talk a little bit about that challenge of building brand so you are around tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, with well, I need business today. Because again, I 100% agree, get involved in your community. If you had one place to spend your money, go sponsor a little league team, or go sponsor a local marathon or something, right? People want to know that your business exists in your local community, but you're not going to get a lead immediately from, right, attending a local art festival or whatever it might be. So talk a little bit about that conversation you have and how you explain ROI on that, when again, right, they're just looking for a lead today without thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, and that's hard, especially for new franchisees. They are anxious to get going, and we talk about that integrated approach and how to invest, and we try to explain, ultimately these pieces are going to build if you run your business and you treat your prospects and your clients correctly. Like, these key pieces that can be a driver of your business, whether it is reviews or it's referrals, that comes with time. And ultimately you'll get to a point. We have some franchisees for our outdoor living company that have about 45% of their sales every year directly from referrals. They invest probably the least percentage wise, and they're one of our highest performers. And that's just because they've built that process and how they do that. We try to explain how all of the different tactics work together, but we also try to explain to them of when you're pushing certain pieces more. When things are difficult in the online space, how can we utilize your existing marketing database, whether that's going back and, going for a service add-on, going back to expired proposals. But if you aren't nurturing them constantly before those times, you're not going to get anything there. You have to continue to build your brand and build the relationship with clients. So we talk a lot about that with franchisees, a lot during planning of like, here are the things that are in your investment and here's what's in your budget, but what are the tactics that you're doing at no cost? What are you doing in terms of email marketing? What are you doing in terms of just going out and networking? What partnerships are you building with, complementary businesses? With us in the residential side, some of our brands work very well together. So, what is our Bumble Roofing franchisee doing with our Koala Insulation franchisee? So we're talking about a lot of those networking, and I'll also say our franchise business coaches do a lot of that as well. So, if they're visiting a franchisee in Kansas City, they're inviting all of the Kansas City franchisees, not just those from their brand, there to build those relationships. So it's something that we talk about, but we also practice.
How can we refine local ad campaigns at scale? Ryan, this is right up your boat here. Again, kind of touching on, a little bit about, you talked a little bit about video and some things earlier, but, what are some impactful things that you're seeing clients execute on? And, how, again, that question is, Google's getting more expensive.
Yeah.
How do we make sure that, we're efficient with our spend there and it is giving us a good return?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll answer this from two different angles. I'll answer it one from the agency's perspective, and then I'll answer it from the brand's perspective, because I think this is just they look at it from, it's two sides of the same coin, but they look at it.
Spend all the money they can, right? Agency doesn't care. They just want to spend your money.
They want to spend your money, but also I'll tell a story here that we helped an agency onboard a 500 location brand earlier this year, and half of the battle there was not just spend the budget, but don't break everything in the process when you're bringing everything online, when you're launching the new campaign templates, when you are making sure that everybody's on and nobody's accidentally running when they shouldn't be running. There's a lot of nuts and bolts there that I think people assume are happening that may not always be happening. And that's something that I think a lot of agencies from that side of the coin here, they fall into the trap of, I'll check on that campaign once a month or every other month, but maybe it was off for the last 45 days and you didn't know, or it was overspending the entire time and now you're in hot water on that. And so there's just a lot of nuts and bolts that I think when we're going back to AI here, I think there's a lot of leveraging that agencies can do with not just creating campaigns and being innovative with campaigns, but just doing the ongoing maintenance of those campaigns and making sure that they're continuing to hit their goals, making sure that they're continuing to get the results and that they're monitoring them at scale, because it's not going to be possible to look at 500 campaigns in a week, or even in a month. It's going to be very difficult to look at all 500 campaigns. And actually that agency that we helped onboard that brand to, they didn't have to increase headcount at all. They just figured out what are the tools that we need in place to see this stuff at scale and manage this stuff at scale and be efficient with our time and be efficient with our resources. Now from the brand side of things, now, they want ultimately they should want each of their franchisees to be profitable. And so, going back to the idea about reviews and how kind of this omni-channel approach goes in, and sponsoring the Little League team, sponsoring the marathon. If you spend a bunch of money on Google ads or Facebook ads, but then your reviews are terrible, like that's gonna make those campaigns look really terrible as well. Or if you are spending a ton of money on Google ads to be #1 all the time, but then nobody's ever heard of your brand ever in your local community, then you will probably drive some results, but it's just going to take a lot longer and it's going to be more expensive to do that. So you have to coordinate all those things together, and you really have to make sure that each franchisee, and this is again from the franchisor's perspective, you have to make sure that each franchisee's campaigns are not one-off unique unicorns every time. You have to figure out, like, you've joined a network for the network effect, you've joined this community, so let's share those insights. Let's make sure that we have a central theme of what we're pushing from both the national campaigns and the local campaigns, and then test that theme, whether that be a campaign template or some sort of messaging that you're trying to get across, whether in a video format or in some sort of other format. Like, test that in the different markets, and then whatever's working, let's roll that up sort of nationally now, and let's make sure that everybody's in lockstep together. So really, it's we see things very much from like a mechanical side of marketing, or we're very much on the science side of marketing at Adplorer here, and it's all down to, in our opinion, coordinate with what the CMO or the franchisor wants to do, and then let's make sure that the agency is doing their part, the franchisee is making sure that they're doing their part, and then let's make sure that these things are successful all the way across the board.
Jane?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan hit on most things. I think the key for the success is to make sure that everyone that is a key decision maker understands what success looks like. And I think that is sometimes a little bit different depending on if you're working with an agency versus maybe a brand leader versus whomever, and a franchisee, is what are the goals of whatever campaign that you're doing? A brand awareness campaign, when we're looking more at engagement, versus a lead gen campaign, we have to make sure that we're aligned in what success actually looks like, and making sure that we have the data points to support that. That we can say yes or no, this was successful. I think that's the key, the baseline foundational piece. And then making sure that we're using the tools and the experience that are available to us via partners or data or whatever, to make sure that we're building towards whatever success looks like. A/B testing when appropriate, and a true A/B test, not like let's have two completely different things out there and see what happens. We have some partners of ours that they have been really great about, nope, we're doing true A/B tests. Let's see what are the incremental changes we can make that impact success and what that looks like. And then a dedication to adjusting and refining constantly, I think is important. I mean, Ryan talked about it. Sometimes you don't know if things are actually being done in the way that they should be. And I think having that ongoing conversation with whoever is ultimately accountable to it is important. And that has to be a partnership and a back and forth of information and collaboration.
It's interesting, and I made that jest at agencies, and I have a love-hate relationship with agencies, and it tends to side a little bit on one side than the other. But I get a lot of franchisees who reach out and they say, hey, I talked to Bob Jones agency, and I'm looking to spend a little bit of money with them, and will you sit down and have a conversation with them? I said, absolutely, love to have a conversation with them. And they all come back with the same plan. So I think one thing that I tell my franchisees and others is don't necessarily go after everybody. I think seems to go after the same plan. And the initial thing is if somebody has a little bit of dollars to spend it on some Google ads. And I tell them, I said, don't be afraid to say no to the traditional path for it. And for us, on the B2B side, we have one service that makes up 50 to 60% of our business, and it's a recurring revenue service for us. So naturally, all of our franchisees want more of that service, right? And I educate them. I say, okay, yeah, it has the highest search volume. Yeah, it's the highest revenue for you because it's a recurring revenue model for you. But everybody's going after that. If we look at, I'll give an example, parking lot repair. You look at parking lot repair, the search volume is nominal, but the intent of that search is a lot higher than somebody who's looking for janitorial services, right? Somebody's looking to, parking lot repair, they probably have a need today, where janitorial, it could be next week, next month, next year. So don't always go after kind of that, shiny object, the big volume terms. There's a lot of niche services that we can attack throughout the year that are going to be more cost efficient for us. There's going to be less competition, and they're good money makers for you. So it's again, and it's interesting that you have that difference between agencies and what brand leaders are doing. Max, on your end. We know your platform is great from an ad campaign perspective. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing and what your team is seeing to bring some efficiencies to some local campaigns.
No, that was clearly like Ryan's question. So it's really hard, and it's really hard to add on top of what has been said by Ryan and Jane and you, Kasey. And I couldn't agree more with the omni-channel approach. So I mean, like, if you're not having a good customer experience as a company, if you have bad reviews, like ad campaigns are not going to work. So and the second point maybe is the data transparency, and also like this less streamlined A/B testing success that we've seen with one of our customers. So the approach that they took, they let their locations do like experiment a bit with localized ad campaigns, and had enough had a good visibility on the performance data, so they could really fast identify anomalies. And that was kind of their approach for thinking outside the box. So they could see what type of localized targeting, or maybe a version of that preset creative like brought most of the results, and then they checked the data and reverse engineered why that would actually work that well. And if that idea was validated, they just let other locations go with the same approach, and that brought results. So kind of ideas generation and thinking outside the box at scale kind of thing, which is also brings additional creativity into ad campaigns, and that comes back to data transparency again. So that's my point. Omnichannel and data transparency make ads work best.
Jane, we'll kick this one off with you. How, when you're looking at different trends and different strategies, how do you evaluate those plans, and whether it's partners, whether it's internal brand teams? How do you what is your selection criteria and planning criteria look like when you're planning for the new year?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with what are the priorities of the brand or the franchisee, and understanding, what they're looking to grow, if it's a specific service or in a specific area of their territory, understanding what they are looking to do. And there are foundational pieces of the marketing plan that we know work from a data perspective. So those aren't changing, but there are obviously the new and shiny things, and new tools and new platforms and new everything within the marketing landscape. It just changes so quickly. And I think it's important to look at, when we're evaluating that, it starts with, okay, well, what are the goals, but who's the audience? Like, if they're not talking to our audience, some of our brands, it's, people who've lived in their home for over 4 years, they're 45 plus, some of those aren't going to work, that's not going to, they're not everywhere online or offline. So making sure that whatever we're looking at or looking at testing is ultimately going to speak to who our client is. And then, at some point, if you're looking at testing a new trend or testing something new, you got to take a leap of faith a little bit, but do work with whoever you are partnering with of what can we do to give it the best chance of success. So sometimes for us, that we have a seasonal business for some of our businesses, like we want to make sure that we're going to push something out in the spring where it can truly make an impact. And, if it's not going to look great if you're launching it right now, for us, it's just not. So making sure, and then, it's ultimately at the end of it, at the end of any test, it's figuring out, what did you learn? Not, what are sometimes it's a rock star and we should be doing this across the brand every year. And why haven't we been doing that? And that's great, but that's rare. But you might find that a message worked, or you might find that a certain creative drove more engagement, whatever that is. I think that's key to looking at and evaluating anything that's new and upcoming.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jane. You mentioned the, testing new things, and I think one important thing is setting realistic expectations up front. I think everybody, and I can't believe we're still saying this in 2024. Everybody wants viral, right? Everybody wants virality, and it's, for a franchise location, if you get 100 people looking at a video, that's great. You don't need thousands and thousands of people, right? You can add 5 new customers a month. That's phenomenal. So I think setting these expectations up front with franchisees, and yeah, it's going to be a little bit new. It's going to be a little bit more work. This thing that we have in our hand, our phone, is just so powerful today that getting them to do things that are different and take pictures and take video, and it doesn't need to be a Hollywood produced video, right? Just get me content and let my team put that together for you is just so important. And again, setting that expectation that the odds of a piece of content from a janitorial company going, viral is very nominal. And that shouldn't be our expectation. So it's really interesting that you say that. Ryan, talk a little bit about, so when, your clients and, are planning, again, whether agency or brand side, right, we're mid-November right now, so we should be planning for 2025 already. What are some things that you're seeing and you're communicating to them, when you're putting together your plans for your clients?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I think we'll repeatedly come back to here is data, and making sure that you're tracking the data and that you're consolidating that data in some way, shape, or form. You can run 1,000 tests, but if you don't have anything to prove it that it worked or not, then maybe you just go on feel, or what somebody thinks is going to be the best solution moving forward. So it always surprises me, maybe in not a great way, of how many brands don't have a centralized CRM system or a centralized data warehouse or some way to consolidate all this information that they're spending lots and lots of money on to get, and all this information that they should be analyzing. I know, Max and Jane talked a little bit about this earlier too, but not every brand can afford 10 data analysts to be there and just crunch numbers all day, but find partners that can help you do that, and find some way to host that data. If every franchisee can pick from a list of 5 different CRMs that they want to choose from within a brand, then it's just going to make analyzing this stuff that much harder. I know there's some pros and cons to doing it that way, but my recommendation is always, do whatever it takes to have transparency on what are the results of these campaigns that we want to test. And then when you have a new test, like, declare before the test, what's the goal of this test? Like, why are we doing this test? And then the last thing I'll say here is, when it comes to creating the strategy of, hey, for 2025, what are those goals that we want to accomplish? Don't just, as the brand, don't just offload that to an external agency or offload that to a third-party consultant. Like, have a little bit of ownership on that, but also in sort of this partnership idea here, leverage what those agencies and what those third-party consultants can bring to the table. If they've run 10 campaigns that have been successful like this in the past, and now you are just sort of building off of their expertise, great. Like, let's figure out how to leverage that. Let's figure out how to use it. But as the brand, don't always just send 100% of the creative strategy making, decision making to those agencies. So I'd say, have a plan, know where you're going, and then be sure you can measure it.
Let me give a shameless plug to Max and his team on that database. So we worked with Promo to export our data into Power BI. So now we can go to our franchisees and say, well, why should I be spending time on social media? And say, here's the data that tells you that, right? And it's a visual that they have for their location. And again, Promo Republic and that team was instrumental in helping us get that data and visualize that for us. So Max, we're a minute here to the hour. I'll give it to you to kind of close us out. What are you looking at? What are you educating your teams on? And again, your account leads are phenomenal and partnering with us and helping us do this. But when they're evaluating trends for 2025 and forward, what do you look at, and what do you recommend brands do?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kasey, for the great feedback. And I'll be really quick in my in addressing this question. So innovation and like trends are great, but I think they become more and more powerful if you have a workflow on making sure the adoption of this new innovation within the organization works and more people benefit from it. So my team asked me to give an example of this kind of leaderboard feature that we've figured out. So how you can actually transform the localized marketing data into a leaderboard of locations, performance on local marketing, and of course that looks great and interesting for CMO. But on the other hand, it's super interesting for franchise operations guys that know, okay, now I know who I shall talk with about those reviews or some other things. And then they use it, leaderboards, to gamify how they communicate with franchisees. They show what's actually possible on this market, what you can achieve. And they explain strategies, why should it be done in that specific sequence and so on. So innovation and adoption makes innovation way more powerful. So and that is often forgotten about. So you just launch something, but then no one actually really cares and uses it. So having in mind the needs from different departments, and both on the corporate and on location level, is very important before actually doing those tests. So that's my take on it. Thanks a lot.
Leaderboard comment. Flip that leaderboard so the bottom's up front. Franchisees are hugely competitive. Nobody wants to be last. And if you show somebody, wait a minute, our Austin location's last, right? That franchisee is going to go out of his way to make sure that he's not last next month. So great comment there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Alex, but Jane, Ryan, Max, thank you for joining us and sharing your insight. It's been so insightful and helpful. So thank you for taking time out of your day. I know everybody's super busy at the end of the year. So thank you for joining us and participating. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alex to wrap us up.
Perfect, Kasey. Thank you so much. We'd love to hear any questions from the crowd. And to build upon Kasey on your closing notes, I'm actually taking a franchise course right now, and we had Shelly Sun as the guest speaker, who was the previous CEO and founder of Bright Star Care. And she mentioned exactly that we leaderboard out the data sets and gamified it, where it's not just fragmented to a franchisee to understand how they're performing, but seeing where they sit in that leaderboard, because it really led for that evolution and competition, friendly competition amongst their franchisees. And overall, they saw a substantial uplift across their local marketing best practices. So great point. Definitely works.
Wonderful.
Any questions from the audience? We have Noah Lewis. What are the most popular data warehouses? Power BI. We personally leverage Power BI. There's definitely a lot out there. Domo, Tableau can be a great visualization tool.
Any other questions that anybody has? Don't be shy.
Yeah, I think that was.
Ryan might.
Looks like it was the last question.
Well, wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for taking your time on this Tuesday. Appreciate the opportunity. And again, Jane, Ryan, Max, thank you for participating in your insights.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kasey. That was the smoothest moderation I've ever experienced. Thanks a lot for that. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you guys. This is great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.